Fire Emblem Three Houses was so ugly I killed myself and then came back to life just to complain about how stupid this looks. So let's overanalyze the details of the upcoming Fire Emblem Engage and see if it's any better. It's worth clarifying that this is pre-release footage, so the final game may look a little bit different, although honestly I doubt it. And if you like these videos, please consider becoming a channel member. So first of all, I think we should talk about what the style of this game is trying to be, which is anime, obviously. Despite using 3D models, it's clear they're trying pretty hard to make these games feel like a 2D anime, to the point where they frequently use 2D watercolor backgrounds, and it's honestly really impressive how the background seamlessly transitions from the more detailed 3D areas for the character models to interact with into the flat watercolor paintings in the background. The colors of the scenery are really nice, but unfortunately a lot of my praise here only really applies to cutscenes and doesn't seem to hold up as well in actual gameplay. You can see the colors are similar, including the pretty nice looking atmospheric perspective here, but the style just doesn't hold up as well when the watercolor paintings are replaced with low detail, low poly models. These environments leave a lot to be desired in my opinion. They feel very bland and gamey, like a source mod or something, rather than a real lived-in world. Everything is too clean and perfectly placed for it to be believable. Everything is just missing an extra layer of detail and polish to really make the world feel real. Speaking of this main hub area though, there's obviously a good versus evil, red versus blue thing going on here. And what I assume is the good guys area here is not only color-coded with a lot of blue as aided by the sky in the background, but the entire area is also made up of circles and round arches, which also imply good or safety. If there is a bad guys area you can walk around, I imagine it will be underground with a lot of red and sharp edges to contrast this. Going back to the anime influence on the characters, they tend to have these thick black lines around them. While in 2D it just makes sense to work with outlines, with 3D models it's a completely stylistic choice, and it's alright, I guess. When you see it up close, there's a lot of areas where it just seems to break, and it also highlights the low poly areas on the model. This effect also certainly doesn't help when you're looking at a lot of detail in one place, because this game's resolution paired with low poly models and little to no anti-aliasing results in a lot of jagged lines which can be hard to look at. This one detail is probably my main issue with modern Fire Emblem games. It just looks really bad. I do like the cell shading though, yet another choice made here to keep the style in line with 2D anime, and I appreciate how it properly reflects light around it instead of just being grey and dull. Something else I like is how you can see the facial features like the eyes and eyebrows through their hair a little. This is actually a little more complex than it might seem at first glance, because it's not that the hair is transparent. You can't see the skin or other strands of hair through them at all. Only those chosen facial features which contribute to expression show through. This is common in anime, and I've seen people call it unrealistic, but that's not necessarily the case. In this style, hair is stylized into big chunks, but in reality it's obviously a ton of thin strands. Because of this, in real life, you tend to be able to see through it a bit, particularly in thinner areas like the end of a fringe. So having facial features show through these big clumps of anime hair a little is actually accounting for how realistic hair works. Kind of. Most importantly, it makes the expressions clear, which is great when you have all of these over-the-top anime character designs. For the most part, I quite like these. They often come across generic, and sometimes they look a bit stupid, but overall I'd say they're appealing even if they are playing it very safe. This girl has a nice smirk, and the creases under her eyes are a nice extra detail. Overall, she has a pretty nice design. I'm not completely sold on the main character with their red and blue hair, but I do like how long the hair is on the girl, and it looks especially good in a ponytail. Speaking of this whole exercise area though, it does highlight how the shadows are tied to the character's feet rather than being calculated in any kind of realistic way. So it does look a little bit awkward when this character is doing sit-ups and they just have a black circle around their feet. Moving into the gameplay, I actually really like how seamless the transition from the map into the combat view is. In this shot we have continuous movement between the cuts, which makes it even smoother and doesn't waste any time getting into the actual combat. The dynamic camera angles here make the build up to the attack more exciting, and then the camera switches to the classic flat view so it's easy to see what's going on. You can see how there's a pause when the attack impacts, and then they follow through, which looks really cool and gives you a sense of how hard they're actually hitting. If you've seen Sakurai's YouTube channel, he's done an entire video about this and the importance of pausing for impact. There's also a camera shake here which makes the attack that much more impactful. This is a bit weird though. You can see how this NPC very quickly snaps back to a position so their attack can start. They then go from being pushed back into immediately having forward momentum, which feels a little bit jarring and not as fluid. It makes sense that these characters do need to snap into a position for their animation to start, but I think this could be done in a smoother way. You can also see how this guy is moving forwards without actually moving his legs at all, which is kind of funny. When zooming out of the fight, all of the map elements get bigger and chunkier so they're easier to read. For the most part, the details of the world are completely consistent between between these two views, although there are examples where this isn't the case, like the windows here disappearing. I really do think it's impressive how they managed to transition between this more realistically proportioned world for the fight to take place into this kind of chibified version of the world for the map. The movement grid has been smoothed out now compared to previous games, but you can see here how the floor tiles include a grid pattern which is actually accurate to the grid the player is working with. I do think removing the outline for each tile looks better, but it definitely could be confusing. So this way you're given context to the grid you're working with from the level design itself rather than from the UI, which is a pretty interesting idea. Overall, this game looks just fine, I mean visually. I'm sure it's fairly fun. I don't have that much experience with Fire Emblem, but I may well check it out. If you do want me to make more in-depth videos after the game comes out, just let me know. And for now, make sure you check out my other videos on games like Splatoon 3 and Sonic Frontiers. Wow. If you want to improve your art for free, you can join the Learning to Draw Discord server, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and you can become a channel member if you would like. And that's going to be it for now, so thank you for watching, and goodbye.